Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you guys how to use and build Himiko. Himiko is in faction of Meteor, Yelas of Legend, and Times of Heroes. Level 70 max stats, head of Shinobibe and Gen-O-Maru. So these two classes have the exactly same stats, like literally exactly the same stats. So the head of Shinobibe is an assassin, gives you 3 movement, while the mecha Gen-O-Maru gives you 4 movement. So there's no reason not to choose the mecha. Talent here, ninjutsu substitution. Very broken in my opinion. So first part is critical hit rate and critical damage increased by 15, 20, 25, and 30% at 6 stars. After actively attacking and dealing damage, 50, 60, 80, 100% chance of dealing 1 random ninjutsu effect on the enemy. So this is kind of same as Bozo. Let me explain what's a ninjutsu effect. Ninjutsu is a debuff. It's a random debuff. However, it doesn't occur a turn after. So it's like a delayed debuff, which is why it cannot be immunized against or dispelled. However, when the debuff happens, like the next turn, then you can dispel the debuff as well as immunized. Second part of the talent, before being attacked and entering battle, cause both units to be unable to attack, and afterwards transfer self next to the closest ally. This effect has a 4-4-3-3 turn cooldown at 6 stars. So this one is really good. She basically gets a free hit. She's not going to get hit. She will teleport next to his closest ally. He literally doesn't need a tank to just go in. The weakness of this second part of the talent is that she is available to get hit by AoE attacks. Since she's a collab character, she doesn't need anyone else to unlock her bonds. Basically, you just have to fully upgrade her tree, and at the third one, the honor, clear Time Rift Elite Chapter 3-1 with Himiko. Now we're going to look at her skills. These skills are the common assassin skills, but I'm going to go over them because they might look a little bit similar, but they're a little bit different. So Shadow Rate, cost 2, cooldown 2, range 2, single span. Physical damage, ignores guard and deals 1.3 times damage. Sneak Attack, cost 1, passive. When dealing critical damage in battle, deals extra fixed damage once after battle. Damage equal 2 times hero's attack. Plunger, cost 2, cooldown 2, range 2, span single. Physical damage, ignores a guard and attacks a single enemy causing 1.1 times damage. After combat, steal a maximum of 3 buffs from the target. So the difference between Shadow Raid and Plunger is the damage difference, and Shadow Raid is pretty much you use it when you're confident that you can one-shot the target that you are attacking. But when it comes to Plunger is when you are not confident in killing your opponent. However, you want to still cause trouble. You can now steal buffs from the enemy. Next we have Ripples. Cost 2, cooldown 2, range 2, span single. Physical damage, ignores guard and attacks a single enemy, causing 1.2 times damage with a 20% increased crit rate. So this skill is absolutely useless on her, because her talent increases crit rate by a lot already. You don't need this extra crit rate. And this does less damage than Shadow Raid, even though it does a little bit more than Plunger, but that's pretty much it, by 0.1. So it's definitely not worth it bringing either in PvE or PvP. Ninjutsu hot technique. Cost 1, cooldown 4, range self, span single. So this is a self buff skill. Assist active use. Deals 0.1 times AoE damage to self and gains movement plus 2. And ignore enemy obstruction when moving. After ending action, all blocks passed through by this unit will gain embers. When enemies end turn on this tile, they will take 15% of max HP as fixed damage. Last 3 turns. Very good skill. The cost is only 1 and you get 2 movement. And basically you ignore your enemy's position and you can move wherever you want. And later you will take over the tiles and they'll become flames, which will take 15% of max HP as fixed damage. And it lasts 3 turns, so I think it's really good. It's like there's no reason not to bring this in PvP. Sealing Technique, cost 2, cooldown 3, range 3, span 1. Physical damage, directly deals 0.3 times AoE damage to one enemy and dispels 3 buffs. So even though it says AoE damage, it's still going to hit only one target. It's just like Bozo Sleep is considered as AoE damage. Inflicts cannot attack and cannot use active skills last one turn. Cannot be dispelled. It's kind of like Sleep, but like a different version. Sleep is like they can't move, whatsoever. This one they can move, but they cannot attack, and they're silent. This skill cannot be dispelled, just like Sleep. However, you can immunize it. Sneak Attack, cost 1, passive. When dealing critical damage in battle, deals extra fixed damage once after battle. Damage equal 2 times hero's attack. Ninjutsu Sacred Cow, cost 2, cooldown 2, range 5, span line. Physical damage, attacks along one line for 0.3 times AoE damage. Cost displacement, which means you can push your opponent back, pushes all target back 3 blocks. Don't forget her talent gives 1 ninjutsu, that's a 1 debuff. Everyone who gets hit by this line will get a debuff. Okay, her 3C now. Awakening skill, Lightning Shuriken, cost 3, cooldown 6, range 5, span 3 lines. Physical damage, attacks enemies along 3 lines for 0.3 times AoE damage. That's a lot of damage. Critical hit rate is increased by 20%. Inflicts movement down randomly from 1 to 3 points. What that means is randomly from 1 movement down to 3 movement down. Last 2 turns. If this attack hits 3 or more enemies, then cooldown minus 3. Okay, so this skill is pretty much solely for PvP. It's not that useful in PvE. So we're gonna first look at the movement down debuff. So, okay, for example, there's fogs behind you, and most of your heroes are like 3 movement. And now you get randomly hit by the movement down minus 3 movement, which means the fog can catch up next turn if you cannot have anyone who can dispel it. Since it's last 2 turns, which means the second turn you're going to die in the fog. So it's really strong, especially her other move, ninjutsu whatever, which pushes you back. If they push you back and then you have no movement, then you're going to die in the fog. So if they use this first and then push you back. I guess when you fight her, you just have to be careful and make sure you can somehow dispel the movement debuff. Otherwise, you're just going to die in the fog without even fighting. Recommended weapon. So basically, any bows will work. Bows does more damage than dagger. I don't recommend you guys using dagger. I think the best weapon would be Extreme Magic Bow for any assassin. Usually, Extreme Magic Bow is the best since there's no melee penalties. If you don't have Extreme Magic Bow, Hydra's Bow is also very good. If you don't have Hydra's Bow and you have a lot of Bloody Melody, you can also use that. So whichever you prefer, the attack is also, they're all the same. If you don't have a lot of Extreme Magic Bow, you probably want to save your Extreme Magic Bow for Assassin who's solely for single target rather than Himiko. Recommended armor. When it comes to any heroes who can equip Last Rites, Last Rite is their best armor. However, you gotta be careful when you use Last Rite because remember her ninjutsu hot technique. That one is a self damage attack of 0.1 point times AoE damage, which means she's gonna self break the Last Rite. So usually what you want to do is probably move Himiko first in Apex and then get your healer to heal her up, and then now she has that Last Rite effect. Demon Lizard skin is also recommended because of her second talent. So when you're getting attacked, you're not going to take any damage. However, you still have a 50% chance to apply 1 random debuff on your enemy. Same reason goes to Cloak of Defiance. If your opponent attacks you at range attack, you will be able to deal free fixed damage if your second part of the talent is active. King's Crown is good in PvP if you are going to do tank push with your allies. Now you have a lot of chance to buff your allies. Doomsday Herald. If you have your second part of the talent active, you really don't have to worry too much unless they have AoE. So if they have no AoE attackers in PvP, you basically just go in and hope that this will help you inflict another debuff. Jormungandr's Eye, same reason as Doomsday Herald. The debuff is not as strong as Doomsday's Herald, however the stats of this helmet is better than the other one because it gives you HP and defense. Recommended accessories, honestly any attack accessory will work, but however these three are the ones that I recommend. Judge Talisman, because most of the heroes who can dispel are mages and holy units, so dealing extra damage to holy units is good because you want to kill them ASAP. Overlord badge is good. Good and balanced, gives you a lot of attack and you're immune to a lot of debuffs, especially mobility down, because you want to make sure you're in range to debuff your enemy. Swordsmith medal is also very good, especially if you want to keep your last right active and you don't want to get silenced because your whole main game would be AoE debuff. Enchant Choices. Full Moon if you choose to use her as a single target dealer, which I don't really recommend, but Full Moon would be the one that gives you the maximum damage output. Clock enchant I think is her best enchant, especially in PvP. Since her cooldown for 3C is 6 turns, however, if you hit 3 or more units, the cooldown reduces by 3, which means the cooldown is 3, and if clock procs, that's another cooldown by 5. In other words, you are able to use it right away the next turn. So clock proc and her 3C makes her broken in Apex. So if you're going to play Apex, make sure you use clock. Like the other enchant would probably make you regret, in my opinion. Magic, if you want to use her as a real heavy damage AoE dealer. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend this. Unless your attack enchant is very, very high. Otherwise, I think magic is still lacking something. Soldier choices. Earth Elf Knight, I think is her best soldier because of how high her critical rate is already, and with Earth Elf Knight you can inflict another debuff and steal one buff. In other words, if your skills are on cooldown and you just want to attack with your normal attack, now you can still apply 2 debuff and steal 1 buff. Do you remember that Earth Elf Knight has 5 movement? So if you're using Gen Omaru class, that one has 4 movement, so this one is good, really good. Now you will be able to use 4 movement fully. Camera is also good, deals good damage, high crit rate, and if you have extreme magic bolt, this works perfectly with it. Samurai, however, only has 3 range movements, so if you are using Gen Omaru, you will only have 3 movement with her. Okay, real talk, I don't really suggest these soldiers unless you want to save resources. You don't want to specifically build the soldiers that I mentioned earlier. Then I think these 2 are the way to go. Especially if you are using them in PvE and you use Himiko as a single target hero, then these 2 are really good. In PvP, if you do use her as a AoE focus, these troops will also work because it doesn't really matter. The troops doesn't affect your AoE. Sorceress would be for maximum damage output for single target. Sorceress do have 5 movements, so you will be able to get full 4 movement with Gen Omaru. Sky Archer is good if you want to fly around and ignore terrain penalty. However, it only has 3 movements, so you cannot move 3 movement with Gen Omaru. Okay guys, this is it for this video. Thank you for watching. A very straightforward character. Basically, you just have to throw your stuff out like Reen and just hope for the best. Alright guys, thank you for watching. See you guys next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye bye.